Hey everybody, it's the Trout. Hope you're having a great day. If you're new to this channel, I interview musicians, I should say very talented musicians, located all over the planet. You're going to find out some independent artists that I hope more people get to listen to them and discover them and listen to their music. And then you're going to know about some of the famous people that we got coming up on the show that get to tell their story about their musical careers. Today's episode is about two guys that have been friends for a long time that have started making music, and I should say really cool music. It's Chris Saunders and his producer, Segnon. They're out of New York City. Well, one of them is. They met in New York City, but now one of them lives in New York and the other one lives in LA, so they do cross-country production. I got to hear Chris Saunders, and I thought he was really unique in his songwriting. But what's really cool about these two is the difference in their personalities and their backgrounds. Chris comes from a Jamaican and Scottish heritage, and Segnon got his start writing beats. And now they put some music together that I think you're going to like. But they got some projects coming up that are very interesting that I think you're going to like to hear about. We talk about their music, we talk about how they're developing their new project, and we even talk about NFTs, non-fungible tokens. What? So, before we get to Chris Saunders' music, remember, if you like this channel, please subscribe to it. If you like this episode, give us a big thumbs up. We'd appreciate it very much. So next up is Chris Saunders' music. I think you're going to really like it. And you know why? Because that's next on The Trout Show. The one thing that really caught my ear, so to speak, Chris, was I listened to Ghost.
I hear rustling in my bed. My mom plays backwards. I never said, but you're not here, no. Ghost echo through my head.
Ghost echo, we let go. One more time to sweat though before the things get go.
Okay. I watched you play it live and I said, oh, I like that. I like the chord pattern. Of course, I know you used, all my guitar's behind me, but used a capo. I'm looking at stuff because I've been playing lead guitar for so long. But then I read about you. And that really was the thing that got me was here's somebody, although you're a native New Yorker, Jamaican, and what's the other Caribbean? Was another island involved in this, or American, or what was the whole story behind?
Sort of an island, Scotland.
Scotland. Oh,
Yeah. Dad's Jamaican, mom's Scottish. They met at the UN, so in Geneva through a mutual friend. So
oh wow,
that's how it started.
And then you came about.
Yeah, well, my brother first, the golden child, and then me.
Yeah, is that it? Just the two of you?
Oh, we have a couple stepbrothers and a half brother, but that's an even longer story.
So, and we'll get into when you guys met and all that stuff, because I know you perform on this. Is it the new album just come out, or is it been out for a while? The one that's on your website.
The website, yeah, Liquid Therapy's been out for a while.
Okay.
Just have updated the website, and that was another collaboration between Segnon and myself. So
Yeah.
That one was more, I'm writing a lot of songs up with my guitar, and then Segnon, the genius, is like translating that into like fully produced things. And then there was a few songs that he just produced from beginning to end.
So, and Segnon, I want to get to that because I really want to. I've had people ask me to produce stuff for them, but I'm in the same boat you are. You're in LA and he's in New York. It's kind of like, are you going to pay for my trip to go? I can't really can't sit in my office and produce. Yeah, man, could you go back in and do this track? And yeah, so I understand that. So, but that really what caught my eye, Chris, is and then the music. And I'm just going to tell you up front, I'm not a rap guy. I'm not a hip hop that much. But the way you guys put it together really was cool. I mean, it just really sounded great. And I know a lot of artists and the music business has completely changed. But, you're not somebody, Chris, that you can pigeonhole, which is a good thing and a bad thing. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So, and I'm not telling something you probably don't already know. So just kind of lead me through the fact that, a little bit about how you started and all that stuff. And then, the next thing you're playing, and I was, you got the band that used to have, is the 11th Ward still together? Or are you guys still gigging?
We're on our like 77th version of the band, but I tour under Chris Saunders now, with some light maintenance of the 11th Ward social media. But yeah, but to your point, I have that diverse background with my parents being Jamaican and Scottish. As you know, Jamaica's a huge music nation, despite its small
I'm a reggae
size.
guy. Love reggae.
Uh, I I was pretty much raised on it, but and then my mom's side of the family, the Scottish side, all of her brothers and even my cousins, they all play guitar. So I was kind of raised in this atmosphere.
Right.
And it took me a while to get like into this. I started writing in 2005.
Oh my, you are a
Right.
late bloomer.
Yeah, very late. But really helped that I hate to say this, but I had a girlfriend at the time. When I first started writing, it was all, happy, lovey-dovey stuff. And then I actually, I started working, so I like, you know how it is, you don't have time, as much time as you'd like to do the music.
Yeah.
And then we broke up. And then the music came pouring out. So if I'm gonna draw a silver lining on a failed relationship, that's it.
You started writing in 2005.
Yeah.
Did you self-taught yourself how to play guitar, or did you have somebody helping you out?
Uh, a little bit of both. In like middle school, I took some lessons, but one day the teacher calls my mom, says, "This is a waste of my time and your money," because I was always at the gym either playing basketball or watching the basketball games, the high
Okay.
school games. So
Yeah.
I was 100, like, well, say 98% basketball, and when I was younger. So that got ended within months. And and then I had a friend, a mutual friend of Segnon's and I, Tamer, who saw my guitar in my house. He's like, "You have a guitar? Like, let's jam." And but he essentially retaught me a few things,
Right.
and then that was like the early age stages of the internet, so I could look up chords and started kind of teaching myself that way.
When did you start writing though? I mean,
Yeah.
were you writing right away? Would you just said, because a lot of people play
No.
guitar or play an instrument, but they don't write.
Yeah. No. No. I when I first started playing, I don't. Let me just say this: I don't really love performing. I'll tell you the story of when I first played in front of like people. But I would just play sometimes in front of my high school friends. When Tamer
Hmm.
retaught me some stuff, and it was
Hmm.
covers. It was, I loved Oasis, Wonderwall, Eric Clapton,
Oh,
Tears in Heaven, Bob Marley, of course.
yeah, of course.
And it was literally for years, even going to college, it was just like, Save Tonight, Eagle Eye Cherry. It was like 4 or 5 songs that I would play.
Right. So
And
you like doing studio work.
um, I like it because I don't have to have like tons of eyes on me. That's what heightens my anxiety.
Well, I think going to studio and Segnon, you're a producer, you understand this. You've probably been in a lot of people. Some
Yeah.
people they get more anxious in the studio than they do performing live. Because I mean,
Yeah.
you probably seen that, I'm sure.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so you got to get used to it.
It's a very
And
different muscle. It's a different muscle entirely.
it's
Yeah.
exactly right.
And I think there are artists who love live performances, and you get them in the studio and they're uncomfortable. I've worked with a lot of artists who it's the repetition of takes, doing it over and over again, that doesn't jive with them. They're more
Yeah.
like in the moment, the reaction from the crowd, just kind of feeling it and going off of
Hmm.
it, and not trying to like work to, okay, that was great, but let's perfect it, let's tweak that, let's do that 70 more times. I don't like that as much. So it varies, it really just depends.
I also love going to the studio. And the people that probably don't like it, where you said take 70 takes, I kind of get off on that a little bit to a certain level.
Hmm.
It's got to be difficult, and because so you don't like performing, but you like going to studio. And I really believe anymore that seems to be the way of the world a lot. Now, but what is it you want to do? I mean, you got a great producer there. He didn't come in because you suck.
No, he loves sucky music. No,
Only work
uh,
with sucky artists.
no, I mean, so I do it like I perform anyway. Obviously, as you said, earlier, the pandemic really put a lot of artists,
Yeah.
careers on hold. But I've gotten past the early stages. I remember the first time I went to perform, I was just bar hopping in Hoboken, New Jersey, with a coworker, and we were on our third or fourth bar, so clearly in good shape. And we walk into one that has an open mic going, and he had heard me play before. He's like, you should play.
Oh
Like,
yeah, I've heard that.
play some of
Yeah.
your
Get
stuff.
get up there and play, Chris. Get up and play.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I tell him like, sure, because I figure by the time it gets to me, like we'll be out of there. Go to our fifth, sixth bar.
Yeah.
And he comes back from the host and is like, "You're up next." My heart stops. Meanwhile, there was a girl that I was interested in, like at the front of the bar. Like we weren't there together. Like she was just there
Gotcha.
coincidentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
get up on the chair. I got the guitar on my knee, and I'm playing the two songs I know the best, which is "Tears in Heaven" and "Wonderwall." But because my leg is shaking and my guitar is on my leg, I'm messing up everything.
Yeah, because Tears in Heaven's not the easiest thing in the world to play. I mean,
Well,
it's
it's
got
also
some.
now we should play at a bar that's trying to have people like upbeat. And I get off stage and I get a drink, and for the next half hour, my hand is just shaking with my drink. I'm just
That's
spilling. So
funny.
that was like 2009, 10. So like since then, yeah, I'm a lot more comfortable on stage now.
So, I'm getting ahead of the game here a little bit, but what do you want to do? What's your goal?
I mean, ideally, yeah, I think making a career out of music would be what I want to do.
Sure.
I love creating music. I love, affecting people with my music. And doing what you love. Like everyone wants to do that, and most people don't. So, trying to get there.
So, how did you two meet? I mean, here you got a producer down there. How did you meet with them, Segnon?
Well, so we've known each other since, I don't know, 2000, 2001.
Now, you always been? Have you been? Are you from New York? Or are you an
I'm
LA
from New
person?
York. I'm from New
Okay,
York.
so all right.
So yeah, so I
To
actually,
2001 we were born, right?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
As
Okay,
babies.
guys. Yeah, yeah.
So a friend of mine from college went to high school with Chris,
Okay.
and so we basically, I think I want to say like the after freshman year or so, I started getting into making music. Early days using Fruity Loops. Now it's called FL Studio. It's
Yeah.
now much more professional sounding
Yeah.
than Fruity Loops.
Yeah.
But in the early days of Fruity Loops, like when it was Fruity Loops 2, I think it was. Now I don't even know, they're on Fruity Loops 20, 21, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was literally Fruity Loops 2. And so early on, I kind of got into making beats just for fun.
Right.
Me and our mutual friend Orpheus.
And I was doing it too in
Chris
college.
got into it too. Chris got into it a little bit too. This is
So
well
you
before.
said you were using FL Studio. Is that what you're using?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And so I always kind of made music. I always made beats for myself, for other artists, for my brother, for singers, just for anyone who kind of needed beats. They weren't very good, but it was what I could do at the time. And over the years, Chris kind of started to pick up his music thing. He started playing more and more. And I don't know what year it was that we eventually started collaborating. But
Yeah,
it was before the Liquid Therapy album.
yeah, that
That
was
was
like
what kind of made it
2014.
official.
So it must have been like late 2000s, right?
Sounds about
Maybe.
right. Yeah.
I mean, we recorded a bunch of stuff that we haven't done anything with. It's just kind of sitting on your computer, on your hard drive, but
That's true.
which
So
we should
tell
look
me
back at.
here's a question I've always had because I follow different people on music places and all that, and they're always talking about doing beats. Back then, what were people using the beats for? I mean, anything that could just throw it on something. I mean, there had to be was there any money in it? I mean, now
Yeah,
everybody wants to do beats, but I think they're selling them. I think people are buying them for different things to use them for.
Yeah, I mean, early on, I sold a couple of beats early on, like $50, like really, really cheap stuff.
Yeah.
There were a couple of websites back then around for you to upload your beats, and you could put your beat tag on it, so that people wouldn't just steal it. And I sold a couple of beats that way. But I mainly worked with artists that I like really respected and wanted to work with on like longer term projects and build like albums with. So I looked at like at those early days as basically me like honing my skills and refining what it is to actually work with artists, because making beats and being a producer, there's overlap, but they aren't this exact same thing, you know. Because that human piece of having to interact with another human and work with them, it's an entirely different skill set than just making beats. And then also like how you actually produce music when you're thinking about making a beat that just sounds good for someone to listen to as an individual beat, versus making a song where there's got to be space for vocalists, and it's got to be arranged. You got to think about, okay, where the chorus is going to come, where are we going to do a bridge? And so that took some time as well, versus just kind of like, this beat sounds good, it's catchy, it's hot, someone might want to rap on it. And so but in the early days there wasn't a ton of money in it. It was more just looking at it as building the experience. You know, maybe if I break even on you know, on some gear I want to pick up, you know, if I want to pick up like a MIDI keyboard, you know, at the time actually it was less about MIDI keyboards and more about actual keyboards, because the sounds that was when I was looking at like the Triton and the Phantom and, you know, actual keyboards. Nowadays, you know, I rely on my MIDI and just have everything in VSTs and, you know, with my DAW. But that was it at the time, was trying to see if I could get, you know, a Shure mic, a solid mic that I could record into, you know, a solid interface, you know, the Pro Tools M-Box. So I could get that, you know, set. So it was really just about breaking even. I've learned over the years is like, there's an element of production that is like, you know, it's diplomacy. It's also like therapy, you know. It's coming together in a way, because I've worked in the past where I've kind of pushed my ideas as producer. This is what I think. I'm the one in charge. I made this beat. I had all these ideas in mind when I made it, you know, and I'm putting it on the artist. That usually doesn't always work out that well, because you can hear it if they don't get it, if they're not into it. You can hear it in performance. You know, they don't fully grasp it, or they're just not into it. You know, the audience will know. And you'll know as a producer, you know, like it wasn't quite right. And then it can be the other way around, where you kind of give just, okay, here's it, do whatever you want with it. And then I've had times where I've kind of been like, oh, I didn't really hear that. That's not really exactly what I had in mind as a producer, but the vocalist kind of did whatever they want to do with it. And so what I've learned is kind of that marriage of my thoughts, my ideas, my initial impressions, but then also being malleable and like kind of working with artists, and what is it that you want to express? How is it that you want to, what is it you're hearing? You know, so more often than I'll listen, I'll create something and I'll say, what do you hear? Because I know exactly what it is that I hear, but I don't want to force my ideas before I get their initial kind of reaction. Like, what was the first thing you felt when you heard this?
And we did that with Countdown as well.
Yeah, exactly.
When did you guys record the first stuff together? I mean, you said you were doing it for a while, but when did it get real?
I mean, I think, well, Liquid Therapy was the first album we did.
And when was that released?
That was 2014.
Okay.
I don't really recall releasing any singles before then. We've released stuff after.
Yeah, I think we recorded a bunch before that, just kind of loose stuff. But I don't think we fully, you know, because we didn't have a project in mind, I don't think we like fully took the songs from like, oh, this is record your guitar and to like build it into a full song. I think that really happened with the Liquid Therapy project. So he's been a friend for years, for a long time. How was he as a producer? Did he help you?
I gotta go, everybody. I'm just kidding.
Here, we'll just cut. I'll mute him. Hold on.
No, yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of the stuff that Segnon was saying about, you know, developing as a producer. I think I was lucky enough to, you know, catch him. You know, we didn't start working when he started making beats in the early 2000s. We started a little later. So every time I've been in the studio with Segnon, you know, I feel like, well, one, we've kind of evolved together in certain ways, but he's always been able to, you know, suggest things, you know, get more out of me, you know, like push your vocals harder here, like don't do falsetto, like, you know, really insightful things that, you know, really bring out, you know, what the instrumentation is doing. So we had a pretty fruitful relationship. I think we've made a lot of good music over the years.
So, Segnon, why did you want to work with him? I mean, you obviously, I mean, you could have been a friend and said, okay, I'll go in the studio with you or whatever we're going to do this at to help you out. But you're a serious producer. So what was it about Chris that you said, "Oh, I got to do this project"?
So a couple of things. Like one, I mean, obviously there's got to be a baseline of just like talent, right? Like, and liking the actual music and liking the actual lyrical content and what you got to say. And Chris
Right.
has always had really, really great songwriting. He's always been someone who I also just connect with as a human, which I think is the
Mm,
biggest part. Because if you're going to be in the studio, it's a commitment. It's
hmm.
time you're going to be in there hours and hours working on the song while you're recording it, then post production, then mixing. It's and in promotion, it's a relationship.
It's a job. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And so you've got to be on the same kind of wavelength and also just vibe, just want to actually be around them.
Hmm.
Um, and then musically, I think it was also just like a challenge for me and something different. It pushed me in a different kind of way because I've been focusing primarily on at the time, primarily on hip hop, pop, R&B. I'd done a couple of, I think maybe I'd done some film scoring stuff.
Mm.
Um,
You
but
think? Of course you have.
yeah, I'm trying to think of the time around 2014. By then, yeah, I think I'd done a couple of film scores. But yeah, it was a new challenge, a new kind of new way of exploring things artistically and creatively that I hadn't pursued before. And so I was just eager to see, okay, well, what can we do together? I've seen Chris perform live a bunch. I've seen him with his band. What does that translate like, in a studio setting? What's that going to sound like on an actual recording? And what's that going to sound like with my influence? Like, how can I, bolster that? Like, not go in there and change it and say, okay, forget what you've done in the past. Now you're working with me, but just build upon what it is that he's been doing.
But
You know,
I think in a way, you haven't actively done that, but I think you have rubbed off on me, and like just from the way you produce and the stuff you produce, which is like phenomenal. Like Go On is like a very, very R&B song,
Hmm.
which I hadn't really done before.
Well,
And
I listened to your album, and I don't take this offensively. It's kind of all over the place, but that's what I liked about it. I mean, that's what I liked about it because I played a couple of tunes on that album. My wife says I don't like this song, and I well, that's okay because you didn't like a lot of stuff I did too either. But then I play something else. Oh, I like that song,
yeah,
and I've already got my mindset. When you said Jamaica, I went, okay, man, he's gonna have some little reggae stuff here going on,
we had one song with a part of reggae in there.
Well, no, but I mean that's as I said earlier, that's what makes you unique. You have your own style, and so this liquid therapy was out for several years ago. Have you have you matured in your songwriting?
No, no, it's always been amazing. But I'm just kidding, everybody. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's yeah, definitely, it just by the nature of getting older, yeah, I think you have to.
Yeah.
But I've also had not just other music, new music that's come out that influences me. I started out, Bob Marley, obviously, and early on Eric Clapton, but then like Coldplay, I'm a big Coldplay fan, and like that
Yeah.
started influencing me as well. Um, but then you have even newer artists like Chronix, like this is a rap reggae kind of artist. He's
Mm.
amazing, and like I feel like something that you kind of heard in this song is similar to that to Countdown. And of course, as the Go On song I mentioned,
Hmm.
that was what the file was titled that Segnon made, and that's how I made the song. Right, like it was just based off of that, and I think instead of using my own personal experience all the time, I've been matured into being able to use thoughts, ideas, and other things to write songs.
So, Segnon, in your business world, so to speak, is your favorite thing to help rap artists, or do you? I mean, you have a stable of different artists that you obviously Chris doesn't do that so much. I mean, you had some rap in some of the songs, which I thought sounded good. What's your favorite thing to do? Not necessarily the performer, but if somebody comes up with you and says, this is what I do," what kind of genre do you like in producing?
I hate to cop out by saying like I don't really have one in particular.
Okay.
But it's true. I think it depends on the artist. I think that I like to work with artists more than I like to work on particular genres.
Mm.
Because I just worked on a track a few days ago with an electro pop group, and it was super inspiring and very, very different, and and something that I loved exploring. But then I also worked with a hip hop artist a couple of days before that, and that was inspiring in a different way. And me and Chris are working on other music that's going to come out in probably next year. That's different than anything we've done before. It's kind of so to me, it's less about particular genres. I think I get in modes every once in a while if I'm in a mode where I'm like, oh, I really need something high energy,
Right.
and maybe I'm in the mood for some like high energy. And even within genres, there's subgenres. Like, so within hip hop, it might be, a very like, anthemic kind of like loud 808 heavy booming Southern kind of influence kind of track. Or maybe I'm in a more pensive, thoughtful, more jazzy, 90s inspired, boom bap hip hop kind of track.
Right.
Or R&B. So it really, it could depend on the mood that I'm in that particular day. But overall, usually I get more inspired by a particular artist than I do by genres. Unless there's something that I just haven't done before, and I go, I've never tried doing that. I've never tried blending, heavy metal and country music and trap music. Let me try that. Let's see what it sounds like. So that might be interesting, but usually it's more like artists I get excited about, just particular artists and concepts. If someone comes up with a concept or something that just kind of seems exciting or interesting, I'm like, okay, let's do that. We'll figure
But
out.
as a producer, you can do that. Artists can't. I mean, you the thing that you have going for you is you have all these different people you can work with and have that ability and say, oh man, I want to work with this kind of genre. Segnon, with you, what do you see with Chris? I mean, here you're the guy. You got it. With the record industry the way it is, and do you feel that, and this affects you, Chris, what's the best way to do this now? I mean, do you want to search for a record deal? I mean, do you want a label to own you, or do you want to just have a gazillion, I'm going to be on Spotify and people, listen to me a million times. I made 53 cents. But, what do you see as a professional in your business? What do you see coming? Or how do you work with somebody like Chris?
Well, it's interesting timing because, and me and Chris have been speaking about this. I think that the industry, it's funny that the record labels are making a lot of money off of streaming, right? Like they're doing really, really well.
Yeah, they're not paying anybody. They're making a ton of money. Yeah.
Yeah. The model works really, really well for the industry.
Yeah, it works for them.
For a while, I think when Napster and kind of pirating music hit, the music industry took a hit. And then when streaming kind of came on, the labels have now they've made more money. They're making more money than they were, in the early 2000s. They're making a ton of money now. But the artists aren't, right? And in the meantime, you also got artists in these 360 deals, right? Where like now the labels are getting a piece of everything. Now they're getting a piece of the touring, they're getting a piece of your merch, they're getting a piece of any appearances that you make.
So they're getting all of it instead of where it used to be. You did the deal with the record label and everything else was yours, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, besides your management, agent, all that stuff. Yeah. See,
exactly.
I didn't know they were doing that. That's interesting.
They're doing that now, a 360 deal. So you make an appearance at a bar and get a $50,000 to show up because you're famous. They get a piece of that. Yeah, like you do a commercial for Arby's, they get a piece of that. So it's been a model that's not really worked very well for artists. It's worked exceptionally well for the labels, and they're making tons of money. So what I've been kind of doing lately, and Chris and I have been speaking a lot about this, and he's kind of delving into it, is kind of Web3 and music NFTs, which is kind of a new space that's been emerging the last 2 years or so.
Yeah,
it's still in its infancy, and it's definitely not where it's going to be. But it allows artists to be able to sell music directly to fans, to collectors, to consumers, at whatever rate that they choose. No label necessary. It's using cryptocurrency. But a lot of artists are very, very successful in that space, and allows them the ability to kind of they'll sell these NFTs that can add different what they call utilities. So if you own the NFT, maybe you get access to screenings for performances, or you get access to VIP backstage, or you can get to have conversation with the artist when they're working on their record, things like that. So it allows a lot of opportunity for artists to kind of actually generate some money. I've sold some NFTs and made more money off of NFTs than I made off of all the streams that I've done combined.
that's amazing to me. It really is.
Yeah, and so you know, I've worked with artists who an artist who sold a music video for $50,000. You know, so it's a real thing that has real possibility of re-empowering artists and bringing back that artistic sovereignty and not having to go through the industry machine. So that I see there being a lot of potential. The project that me and Chris are working on for next year, it's one that combines both music and animation.
Oh, cool.
Which I think works very well for also like the Web3 space, which has worked for a lot of visual artists and who sold a lot of work. Beeple famously sold a piece of his for $69 million last year. So
NFTs are kind of like crypto to me. Huh? What are your next steps? It's working on this next project with the animation. Is that your next thing you're working on right now, Chris?
Yeah, we're intermittently doing that. We have of a long way to go, but the music is close, which is great, really exciting. The animation is like the big thing that's going to take, a longer period of time.
Can you tell me anything about the concept?
Yeah, why not? We don't have any agreements, right, Segnon? Okay. So the project is called The Man with No Name, and it is
Wait a minute, that was Clint Eastwood. Okay.
Yeah, you know what? I wish I had known that before I named it, but we're keeping it now.
I don't know if it's trademarked, so there you go.
Well, that's a very good question. But it is also a Western style animation project, and the music is all like country Western rock kind of stuff. So again, as Segnon said, very different from anything either of us has done. And we're working with another producer, co-producing, who you were talking about doing everything on digitally.
Yeah.
And he has done a lot of orchestral work just with on the digital side. He's done a lot of live instruments that he's put in and got other musicians to record for us. But I mean, it's how I pictured some of these songs to be in my head, as you had said earlier. And it was just us sitting on a Zoom like this and me going, like, just humming stuff, and he was able to actualize that. So yeah, it's really exciting.
So Segnon, you're producing it or helping produce it?
Yeah. Me and he mentioned Mike is a guitarist and also co-producer on it. And it's funny because we've done the entire thing remotely, right? Like, I don't think we've even done one session. We met up for beers once, I think, in New York. Maybe
I came to you because you were in town once. I re-recorded vocals.
Right.
That was just to clean some stuff up.
But the three of us have not actually sat in a room together to work on it. Numerous Zoom calls.
Cool. I think that's cool.
Yeah. But it's a very ambitious project just because of the it's a whole full story, and the songs kind of flow into one another. It's very, very cinematic, and then the animation piece of it. And then just taking on a different style musically for all of us has been a challenge. Like when you asked before about genres, like, this is the kind of thing that just, I love this, a big ambitious project with a vision, a story. This is what gets me excited.
And I walk by the river, listen to the old man play. I went down to the station, I think I lost my way. As I walk down the street.
Well, that's it for this episode of The Trout Show. I hope you liked it very much. If you need to know more about Chris Saunders, just go to his website, chrissaundersmusic.com. You know mine, it's thetroutshow.com. Until next time, remember, people, it's only rock and roll. But we love it. See ya.